Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Acquisitional Wealth Podcast, episode number 3. My name is Josh Tully, and I'm glad you're here. If you are new to this podcast and this topic of acquisitional wealth, then I would urge you to go back to episode 1 and start there. It's a wonderful show to kind of binge watch or binge listen to as you're traveling to and fro on your commute. But definitely check us out. We are also on the web, acquisitionalwealth.com. There's a Facebook group, absolutely free to join. It's also Facebook/Acquisitional Wealth. So you can join our Facebook page and group there. And of course, a little bit about me. My name is Josh Tully. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've owned dozens of businesses, still own 12 of them as we speak. And I have written numerous books on this topic of owning businesses. I've helped thousands of business owners, multiple countries, state and local governments, and you name it. One of my books, Evangelpreneur, is used as a textbook in 2 colleges. And I say all that to say I've been doing this for a while. The street cred is real. We didn't just, pick a topic and create a click funnel or anything like that. Nope. Really been doing this forever and a day, and now I just want to make sure that the rest of the world has good instruction, good conversation, and good training on how to take advantage of the most proven, safest, fastest way to create life-changing wealth in the history of mankind. Yeah, a little bit different studio today, different setup, but that's because we have a lot of things going, so bear with us there. If you're watching this on video, while we're talking about that, on video, you know how the algorithms work. Please hit like, subscribe, and share this with friends and family. All right, with all of that stuff out of the way, I want to get to today's topic because I think it's really a great one when we're right out of the gate here at episode 3. And that is, Josh, is now the right economic time to start a business? And I don't care if you're listening to this in 2022 or 2047, the question is always going to come up. And I think it's fairly interesting because most of the time when this question comes up, it's not a question that really denotes anything significant about the economic phase that we're in. It says more about the mindset of the person who's thinking about buying or selling a business. And I know that sounds weird, but just bear with me. I'll kind of prove that out in a second. When I'm talking to people about buying a business, always, good economic times, bad economic times, whatever, the question always comes out, well, is now really the right time to buy? Is now the time we should make this purchase? You never asked that when it came to having a job, did you? I just asking. Have you ever said, well, in this economic time, I don't know, should I really be employed? Should I really have a job? Or, well, in this economic time, should I keep a job or should I leave this thing now? Should I be out? You never ask that. Why? Because you are doing what you think is the right thing to do in order to make money. That's what you're doing at that moment. All acquisitional wealth is doing is shifting that mindset on how to make the money. That's it. And that's it. So if it's good to make money in a bad economy, great. If it's good to make money in a good economy, great. So when is it ever bad to make money? Never. So the real answer to this then is it's never a bad time to buy a business. But let's dig a little bit deeper into that because I know most people are going, well, that's just an easy, simple answer. It's the truth, but let's dig a little bit deeper. The best time, now we're getting to the best time. The best time to buy a business or even start one, and again, I'm not a huge fan of starting businesses. It's usually a waste of money. But the best time to buy a business or start one is actually in what the general population would consider as a bad economic time. I know that sounds as a how can that be, right? But it's absolutely true. Before we get to that, we have to take another step back, though, and ask ourselves, what is the economy? And this is really kind of interesting. I was teaching a class I do these events. This one was called Business of Life. So it was a 2-day training event. Everybody in the room had an MBA, already had it. So this is post-graduation. These are masters in business administration, right? And I asked this simple question: what's the economy? And the entire class, not one hand went up. Not one. And I start thinking, oh man, Vern, we have a problem. Because if we don't even know what the economy is, how do we know if it's a good one or a bad one? I understand. The media is going to tell you on the nightly news whether it's a good economy or a bad economy. I get it. But how do you know if you don't know what it is? And if you're a football fan, there was a gentleman named Vince Lombardi. He is the gentleman who the Vince Lombardi or the Lombardi Trophy is named after. And he would start every football season by holding up a football and saying, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And when I heard that, I was really kind of thinking, well, wait a second. By the time these guys get to the NFL, they've already played college football. They've already played high school football. They already played Pop Warner football. I'm pretty sure they know what a football is, with the rare exception of somebody like a Christian Okoye, which, if you're a football fan, there's a little Easter egg for you. Great Kansas City Chief. But why ask the question? They already know what it is. But do they? Do they really? And that's what prompted this sort of teaching with me of saying, okay, we have to start with what is the economy before we talk about whether it's a good economy or a bad economy or when to buy a business or when to sell a business. So let's start with that. If I was an alien and I landed in your front yard, down I come, right, in my little UFO, and I said, take me to your economy or show me the economy, what would you show me? What would you show me? Do you know? What is that word even referring to? So, in a very broad stroke, the economy is the measurement of goods and services in exchange of an agreed upon medium. That's what it is. The agreed upon medium in today's world is money, in the form of mostly a fiat central bank backed currency. But it has been other things. It has been tally sticks. I'm kind of a history wonk on money and economics, but it's been tally sticks. Tally sticks are really cool. That's where we get the phrase, "Why don't you tally this up for me?" It's been a number of things. Spices were worth more than gold. So along the line of human history, it's always been this medium of exchange for a product or a service. And the economy then is the measurement of that activity. That's it. That's all it is. It's the measurement of that activity. Well, then that leads to a larger question. Is there just one? Is there just one economy? No. So when the nightly news comes on and says, "Oh, breaking news, it's a bad economy," which one are they talking about? Let's say America is just having a banner year, man. We're just knocking it out of the park. Yet, on the other side of the pond, Russia, it's not having a good year. Well, is the economy good or bad? Depends. Which one are you in? If you're in the American one in this example, yeah, the economy's good. If you're in the Russian one, niet. Okay, let's break that down even further. Let's say you live in Florida, where a lot of businesses are moving to, and relocation and economic development. Hey, cool. Okay, what if you live in Detroit, Michigan? Not so much. So now the economy can be broken down even on a state level? Absolutely. Let's go further. Let's go down to your street. Let's say you just got a massive raise at work, yet your neighbor got laid off, and they owe $20,000 in property tax. Your economy could be good. Their economy could be bad. It all depends on what we are agreeing to define as the pool in which we are measuring that exchange of goods or services for that agreed upon medium. So that's it. That's what the economy is. Make sense? Now, with that being said, when the economists measure the economy, Who are they measuring? You. They're measuring you, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner. You're what they're measuring. So who gets to decide if it's a good economy or a bad economy? We do. The entrepreneurs, the ones who are buying, building, growing these businesses. We decide if it's a good economy or not. So when the nightly news says, oh my gosh, it's a bad economy, the only time you should freak out is if you're employed. And I'll just throw in another free nugget. The worst place you want to be if you're going into an economic downturn, whether that's a recession, a depression, whatever, right? Bear market. The last place you want to be is in a place of traditional employment. Now, what do I mean by traditional? There are some variations of employment that are more like entrepreneurship and less like employment. So if you find yourself in one of those, great. But you don't want to be salaried. You don't want to be working 9 to 5. You don't want to be a doctor or something like that. Nope. You want to be in a position where you can ebb and flow with the economic activity and you can pivot no matter what happens. Okay? So, again, if the news says, oh, it's a bad economy, only freak out if you're employed. The reason you should only freak out if you're employed is because odds are your boss doesn't know what a good economy and a bad economy is either, and they don't know how that affects their business. So they're going to start making decisions as if the news dictates what they do in their company, and that's the wrong way to do this. I wish this could be screamed from every business rooftop in the world. Stop running your business based on the economic forecasts and the economic measurements of economists. Have you ever noticed? I know a lot of economists. They're all broke. Like, this makes no sense to me. I know a lot of hairstylists, and if you're watching this on video, you might be thinking, really? You do? But I do. They all have great hair. I know a lot of mechanics. They all have great running cars. I know a lot of gardeners who at home, if you take them home, they have great yards and great gardens. Why is it with economists, they're all broke? That alone should tell you something, but it's a side tangent and I digress. So back up. So with that being said, I'm assuming that most people listening to this program are either A, entrepreneurs already, or B, want to be. So with that being said, who cares if it's a good economy or a bad economy? They're measuring you. That's it. Now, let's take this a step further. The best time to make money is in a bad economy. Air quotes, bad economy. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. If we look at just some economic realities, let's table that which is better, good or bad for a second. Most of the time, when we are looking at, is this a good economy or a bad economy, we look at a couple things. Until relatively recently, and without trying to get political, because I really don't care who you voted for, but until relatively recently, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth would be classified as a recession. Now they're trying to redefine what a recession is and all that sort of stuff, but table that aside. Typically, we're looking at gross domestic product, typically. That's the first sort of indicator. The second indicator, which I really don't agree with, is the stock market. And the reason I don't think the stock market is a great indicator as to whether or not the economy is good or bad, and certainly if it's a good time for an opportunity or not for you as a private company, is because of the nature of what the stock market has become. And I want to make this really clear because I know a lot of people are all into, well, what's the S&P 500 doing and all that sort of stuff. And they're making decisions on their privately owned enterprise based on what they're seeing publicly traded companies do as far as stock price in the market. So let's kind of break this down. When you have a publicly traded company, there's this idea that, oh, well, you're putting in $1 into the stock market to buy a share of Shure microphones, if they're publicly traded. I don't even know if they are, but let's pretend they are. So you buy 1 share of Shure, and you're like, oh my gosh, I am now an owner of Shure microphones. Not really. Not really. Asterisks, right? Technically, you own a share of stock. Depends on which classification that share is, preferred or common, dictates what your sort of place in the pecking order is. And even then, most of the time, your vote is going to be done by proxy. What that means is it's assigned to somebody else. Typically, let's say you bought your stock through Charles Schwab or Fidelity, or pick somebody, right? Well, you're going to 9 out of 9.5 times sign over the proxy to them, which means even though you get 1 vote, you're assigning it to them, and they're going to vote for you on your behalf for whatever they think is a good business decision for the company. We can go down that road in a minute. So, are you really owning an active element of a company? No, you are not. You are not. This has become a modern day version of a fundraiser for the company itself and a gambling product for the participants who buy and sell the securities, right? So let's say I own Shure microphones, and I say, okay, well, I need to raise some capital. I want to grow into some emerging markets or whatever my thing is, redo my factory. I say, okay, I'm going to raise $1 billion, and I'm going to do that by issuing stock on the public market. It's called an IPO, initial public offering. I'll be working with 1 or 2 or 5 investment banks who will kind of underwrite this whole process, and we sell it on the market. And that first round of incoming cash goes to the company. Asterisk there, some of it's already been purchased by institutions, but whatever. But suffice it to say, okay, boom, I get $1 billion. Woohoo, $1 billion. Well, then what happens? Well, now let's say Bob has that 1 share, and I issued 1 billion shares, and Bob has 1 share. He gets 1 vote that's assigned to proxy, so he's 1 in 1 billion. Do you own the company? 2, Bob owns that 9 out of 9.5 times, not for some sort of profit share dividend plan, but to ride that price as it goes up, which is why the entire Wall Street model, with the exception of some companies that pay dividends, but the entire model itself is based on constant economic growth. And this is really where we get this huge division about what really is capitalism, right? You have a lot of young people out there going, man, capitalism sucks. Capitalism is what destroyed this country. Capitalism is terrible and blah, 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 blah. And they see what corporate publicly traded America is doing. It's not even publicly traded America. It's publicly traded international conglomerates. But they see that, and they think that is capitalism. That is free enterprise. And it's not. It's not at all. As a profitable private company, I don't need perpetual growth, especially if I was in an economy dominated by that. If you want to just have something that blows your mind, look up the inflation rate between the landing of the Mayflower and 1913. And then look at the inflation rate from 1913 forward. I'll just let you find that treat. For the video watchers, I might put it on the screen here, but it'll blow your mind, because privately held companies don't have to play this balance game between artificial values, employment wages, and the value of the currency, all registered and regulated by typically 2 entities, a central bank and then a regulating body for securities exchange, right? And I know this is a little heady. You might have to listen to this thing twice. Your econ professor didn't teach you this, and you should ask for a refund. So back to our example. So you have this 1 little share of stock. You're really buying it for the ups and downs that you're riding, right? This is why if you turn on my buddy Charles Payne over there at Fox Business or Squawk Box on CNBC or whatever, you're going to hear a lot of investors use the word bet. Yep, we got our money on, or we're betting on. There is no difference between that and horse racing. Now, blackjack, yeah, that's a game of chance. Horse racing, there's some skill. There's some analytics. There's some, did that horse get a cramp last night? Or, did he eat good grain or whatever? You can kind of analyze the horses and say, which one's going to run? Which one's going to ride? Right? Well, you're doing the same thing really with the public markets at this point, because it's no longer, a real deep investment into a company to help it grow and thrive and blah, blah, blah. So you're really kind of reading the tea leaves saying, okay, I'm gonna pick this pony as my pony. Well, how does this all play into, Josh, what is a good economy or a bad economy in terms of acquiring wealth? Unfortunately, between GDP and the Wall Street-based model, that Wall Street-based economic measurement, right? Because Wall Street in itself, and by Wall Street, there's multiple stock markets. The largest two in this country, New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, right? But there's others. But that is one economy. Remember how I said you could divide them up, your house versus the house next door? Well, that is one economy, and they're measuring that economy. And that economy at the time of this recording is down 24% this year. Oh my goodness. And we could do a whole show on my normal Josh Tully show. I talk about, riding markets, 15, 30, 40, 50-year holds, all that sort of stuff. That's not the purpose of this, but that is a valid conversation to have. But just know that they're looking at that and going, oh, the terror. And then between measuring national GDP across all markets and industries, and measuring the defined economy of the securities exchange, you come up with this picture of a bad economy. Hogwash. That's not how real money works. That's not how real money works at all. So, I know this seems like we took the 40-year trip in the desert to get to the point, but you're now smarter than most people who have MBAs. What does that mean for us as people who want to go after the acquisition of companies as a way to create wealth? What does that mean? It means that there's always great opportunities to do so, just the opportunities might change. Does that make sense? Let me paint a broader picture. There is never a bad time to be an entrepreneur. Ever. Ever. You could go back 6 years, and at the time of this recording, it is October 2022. You could go back 6 years, pre-COVID-19, and you can watch me on other people's programs, watch film of me on stage, and I was telling people, if you're really thinking something bad is going to happen in America's future, don't stock up on bullets and guns alone, right? The storage food is fine, but it's got to be more than that. The people who are going to thrive are the people who stock up on toilet paper, baby formula, feminine hygiene products, batteries, right? These basic kind of commodity sort of elements or items, and not commodities like the Chicago Exchange, but like just household commodities, right? What happened? 2020 comes around, we have COVID-19, and I looked like stinking Nostradamus, right? Because what did everybody run out of at the store? The stores were bare. They ran out of batteries, toilet paper, feminine hygiene products, and baby formula. Why? Because there's never a bad time to be an entrepreneur. Every time there's a crisis, do you know who gets us out of it? It's not ever the militaries of the world. Do you know who gets us out of it? Entrepreneurs. When Rome crashed, do you know who rebuilt Italy? Entrepreneurs. When China has gone through multiple revolutions, do you know which powers the next one? Entrepreneurs. when the Greek Empire fell, I mean, it's constant. Nations fall, entrepreneurs don't. Period. Or entrepreneurship doesn't. Individual entrepreneurs, of course, but entrepreneurship doesn't. So with that being said, there's never a bad time to be an entrepreneur. And I remember I was on a program once, not too long ago, because all the political chaos that's going on, and they were saying, well, Josh, what if China and Russia really do team up and they invade America? Is the economy over? Is entrepreneurship done? Should I not be an entrepreneur? Why would you think that? Now, I hope that doesn't happen. Like, with every fiber of my being, I hope that doesn't happen. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But why would you think that does anything against entrepreneurship? Why? Are the Russian soldiers not going to need their boots fixed? Are the Chinese soldiers not going to want to go to the movies? Like literally nothing changes. Aliens could invade. Do you know what's going to happen? Entrepreneurship succeeds. So, duh. Now, let's take that a step further. In a good economic time, it is harder for the smaller guy to get into the playing field, and even harder to take on the giants. And I don't know where you are specifically in your life, but just so you know, the small guy, according to American Business, is $250 million a year or less. I love it when I talk to some of these people who are like, well, I make $10 million a year, and they think there's some like hotshot business. You're called a micro business at that time. You're not even considered small. So small business in America is $250 million or less, even a little bit higher depending on industry. So in a good economic time, it's hard for these small businesses to enter the playing field and compete with the larger companies. Let me give you an example. This is a real life example. I'm going to change the names just to protect the people involved. But there was a guy who I know. He's passed away. We'll call him Bob. Bob had a white-collar job, had never worked in construction in his life. And during an economic downturn in the United States, he realized something. If he were to get into the construction industry during a good economic time, he would need to take out a massive loan in order to buy a bulldozer, get a grader, all the equipment, all the people. You get the point, right? To take out a massive loan. All the equipment would be top dollar priced, and all the labor would be insanely expensive. So it would be hard for him to get involved. Everybody tracking? So one day, Bob's driving on his way to work, and he sees a bulldozer outside one of these massive publicly traded companies that are into construction, and it says for sale. And he says, well, wait a second. If that thing's for sale during this bad economic time, high interest rates, high gas prices, that means there's a bulldozing job that's not getting done. That also means that there's a bulldozer driver operator who's not working. And it means that there's a bulldozer payment on this big piece of equipment because all these big companies carry a truckload of debt, and that debt is not being paid. Opportunity. So he goes and finds the person who's no longer getting the bulldozer job done. And again, I'm just making up numbers to protect the innocent. And he says, wait a second, Mr. So-and-so who needs this bulldozer job done. How much were you going to pay the big construction company to do this? $100 an hour. Got it. Okay. He goes to the guy who used to operate the bulldozer. How much did they pay you? $60 an hour. Okay. Goes to the big construction company that has the for sale sign out on the big bulldozer and it's not moving. And he says, hey, how much is your payment on this thing? Works out to about $20 an hour. So he goes back to the bulldozer client and says, tell you what, if I can do this for $80, will you take my bid? Absolutely yes. Still needs to get done. Goes to the driver and says, hey, I can't pay you $60, but if I can pay you $40, will you still do it? got it, goes to the bulldozer driver. You get the point? And because he had like $7, and because of the bad economic time, with $7, maybe $10, he starts this construction company. And when he sold it for $150 million. So, would not have been possible in a, quote, good economy. Totally possible in, quote, bad economy. And again, there's no such thing as a good or bad economy in reality. There's just good or bad economic conditions for whatever opportunity you can spot. Now, does that mean, well, Josh, in a good economy, could he not get involved in construction? He could. I mean, he would need to raise a ton of capital, either through fundraising or issuing stock or, secured debt, whatever. But he could. But in that, quote, good economy, he shouldn't be looking at that opportunity. He should be looking at something else that pops up as the opportunity. And that's really the biggest message to this whole episode as we kind of come to our conclusion here. Don't be confused or captivated or bogged down by good economy, bad economy. If you have your head on straight and you're following along with what we're teaching at Acquisitional Wealth, powered by Kingsbridge, if you're following along with this, it's more important to be able to spot the opportunities and then take advantage of whatever the economic condition is in order to advance towards your fiscal, financial freedom, family, whatever sort of goals you have in life. Does that make sense? And that's why I always say, work your math backwards. Figure out what your destiny wants to be, right? Design the life you want. And then let's work backwards. Don't get fixated on one industry or one business. The worst advice ever is do something you love. You'll never work a day in your life. Stupid advice. If you've been listening to my other show for any length of time, I tell you point blank, some of the worst businesses to get into are businesses you know, like, or love. And we'll do a whole show on this podcast about that too, but suffice it to say, when you're doing those things and you're focusing on certain industries or things that you like, you're missing the opportunities that will provide the end goal that you want. And you're also missing the wise observation of the economic playing field, aka the economy, that allows for opportunities to pop up that other people are just not going to see. So, all that boils down to is now, whether it's a good economy or a bad economy, is now a good time to buy a business? Yes. All right, that does it for episode number 3. Again, binge watch these things. Go back and watch episode 1 and 2. Share these things with everybody else you know. Follow us on Facebook. Tell everybody about Acquisitional Wealth and how it's just changing the whole conversation on buying and selling businesses. I know over the past few years, it's been insanely annoying how many Insta experts have popped up and they start doing these like internet funnels and just makes you puke a little bit in your mouth. All of that hogwash out there, we are the antidote to that. We are the truth, the reality. We've done this for us here at my companies. I own a dozen of them, and hundreds of other people. We've helped them grow, buy, build, sell businesses. That's what we do. So follow us, join along. And if you have a question, we're going to be doing a question and answer series through our Facebook group. Again, join it. Just go to Facebook, find Acquisitional Wealth. We have a public group, absolutely free. We have private groups too for those who are really on their path to doing some stuff. But we love your questions and we want to take them. So if you guys have questions out there, we have 72 episodes already planned out, never written. I wing every episode. There's no pre-writing this. All I'm given is the topic for the day and I just go. But we already have 72 topics hand selected. We want more. Give us your questions, and we would love to hear your success stories too. All right, my friends. So as we end, remember Acquisitional Wealth, the fastest, safest, most proven method of creating life-changing wealth in the history of mankind. I'll see you in episode 4.